Go away! What happened? No! Away! Stop! Get away! Stop! She's crazy. Do you look?
Just when you thought things couldn't get any worse between Kris and Jeymi, Kris crosses a line. And it's at this moment that it becomes obvious there's no future for these two. However, believe it or not, things get even worse at the tell-all.
Exnovio me estaba enviando fotos de ella desnuda, teniendo sexo y demás. And I have the pictures.
Kris, no one wants to see that. But before we go down that road, let's watch the start of the end for Kris and Jeymi. Now, as we know, the pair haven't been okay for a long while now, and we left them last week with Kris exploding and walking out on Jeymi over nothing. Now, either the show is painting Kris in a very bad light, or she really is a nightmare covered in red flags.
I'm not gonna sit and be treated like that.
Necesitamos hablar, yo no puedo atrasar más esta conversación. Ella se va a agarrar en este momento de que yo alcé la voz.
Kris threw a tantrum on Jeymi's birthday celebration because Jeymi slightly raised her voice over concerns about their money situation. Kris's behaviour has been incredibly toxic as of late, and it's becoming obvious that she feels like she should be able to treat Jeymi however she likes, just because she's footing the bill. But wait, she's literally not paying for anything anymore, so why is she so mad?
That's why I didn't come back for her birthday, because my son got arrested. That don't matter, because I'm supposed to be here.
Kris reveals that her son has got into trouble for something drug-related, which I'm sure you'll agree is really sad after all the rumours that have been swirling around about her. But it's apparent that Kris doesn't listen to Jeymi when she speaks, because that's not what she said to her. Jeymi expressed her disappointment that Kris had missed yet another birthday, but she stated that she understood Kris had duties as a mum. And now Kris has twisted those words. But we know why Kris is covering up why she's mad, and it has everything to do with money.
But then she wants to say that I'm not doing anything for our relationship. I can't work here, so I'm there working.
Ella que me envía cada centavo que gana es una total mentira.
And now we're finally getting to the core of why Kris is actually pissed off. She's pretending it's about her son, but it isn't. You see, as we saw in the last episode, Kris snapped and walked out the minute Jeymi brought up the issue of money and unpaid rent. Kris is over here rolling her eyes, saying that she's working in the US for them, but she's also left Jeymi high and dry in Colombia, and she hasn't forked out for rent in months.
Me molesta cuando le hablo del dinero. Me prometió que no me preocupara por mis finanzas. Estoy más endeudada de lo normal por confiar en ella.
Here's what I'm guessing happened. Jeymi was probably in debt before meeting Kris, and after Kris flaunted her money, quickly proposed, and promised to look after her, Jeymi saw her as a way out. So, when Kris told her to quit her job, she foolishly trusted her. But Kris, realising her money wouldn't be able to cover their expenses, old debts and future plans, then changed her tune. Being Venezuelan in Colombia, Jeymi has struggled to find new work, yet she has just started a new job. But without Kris supporting her over the last few months, Jeymi has now fallen into far more debt.
Siento que todas sus promesas son vacías y no tienen fundamento. Esa es la realidad.
Jeymi's in shock and processing that she's on her own now and in a worse position than before, and I think we can all agree she's right. From what we've seen, Kris has broken almost every promise she's made to Jeymi, from looking after her financially, to starting a business together, to overstaying in America. Jeymi thought that her marriage to Kris would come with companionship, financial security, love, all of which were promised to her by Kris. Yet she hasn't had any of those.
Sobre todo cuando yo tengo razón, ella se molesta. Traté de hablar con la persona que amo, pero ella no me quiere escuchar.
Both women are upset and both are separately crying at the venue. But while I can see Jeymi crying real tears, Kris is just incessantly sniffing and wiping away, well, nothing.
That don't matter.
Like, it seems like she's desperately trying to squeeze out a tear or two, but I'm not buying it. So, with Jeymi finally realising the reality of her situation, is she ready to now end this relationship? Well, when Kris calms down enough to return to Jeymi, they resume their conversation.
I sat here and listened to you talk and talk and talk. And then as soon as I started talking, you were jumping in. You weren't letting me talk.
There's something distorting Kris's sense of reality. From what we saw, Jeymi couldn't have spoken for longer than a minute before Kris felt the need to interrupt her. Now, just to play devil's advocate here, of course the show could have been edited in a certain way. But there's something about Kris and the narcissistic way that she acts that makes it really easy to believe that she can't handle someone else talking for longer than 60 seconds, especially when they're criticising her.
I have too much things in my hand, Kris. And right now, yes,
How much did I tell you was the most I could spend for rent?
What?
How much did I tell you that I could spend on rent?
Jeymi's what?
What?
Says it all. Where did that come from? Kris just can't seem to let the issue of rent go. She brings it up even in conversations that are irrelevant. We get it. Jeymi went over budget by $150 a month. But that $150 isn't the reason you ran out of money, Kris. Especially considering you only contributed to the rent for a couple of months. Are you really claiming that a few payments of $150 emptied your bank account? Because that's the way she's acting.
I'm done. I'm done with this bull. I'm done with you being selfish and all about yourself. That's right. I'm done!
Do you reckon Kris is done? Once again, we're seeing Kris rile herself up into a frenzy.
I'm moving out, I'm getting all my I'm leaving, and I'm done. You can do whatever the hell you want. I don't care anymore.
She's unpredictable, she's chaotic, and Jeymi didn't say anything that warranted that kind of response. Frankly, this behaviour reinforces the theory that Kris only came back to Colombia to break up with Jeymi. She never really had any intention to try and fix things between them. She just wants to cut her wife loose and run.
Done!
I know, listen to me again.
Selfish person. It's all about yourself and don't give a about anybody else but yourself. And I'm done.
It's very telling that Kris thinks it's okay to speak like this to Jeymi, but the minute Jeymi raises her voice at her, Kris flips out. It's obvious Kris never really wanted a real partner. She just wanted someone from a different country that she believes she's better than. She expected unquestionable gratitude from her wife. But when Jeymi turned out to be a fully formed woman with her own opinions, Kris couldn't hack it. Something about Jeymi talking back to her enrages Kris to a point where she gets physical.
Go away! Go away! Get the away! Stop! Get away! Stop! She's some crazy. Do you look?
There's no circumstance that makes physical aggression acceptable. And this is so unwarranted that I just have to dig into where it's coming from. Now, there's a fairly common theory about Kris and certain substances being abused behind the scenes. But the truth is, until such time as Kris either confirms or denies that speculation, those will remain just rumours. But what we can speculate about is why Jeymi having a backbone is so specifically infuriating to Kris. To me, it feels like Kris doesn't see Jeymi as her equal. And so, when Jeymi dares to question her or criticise her, Kris loses control.
No sé por qué llegó a ese punto en el que yo vea a Kris a los ojos y vea odio. Nunca fue mi intención que ella sintiera odio hacia mí, todo lo contrario.
My heart breaks for Jeymi here, and we're all questioning where Kris's hatred and anger has come from. But the question is, will this be brought up in the tell-all? Will any of our questions about Kris actually get answered? Well, it's time to find out, because as this episode ends, the tell-all begins. And we join Kris as she arrives on set, immediately pulling a classic Kris move.
Let's do this.
I have been extremely sick the last few days, but nothing gonna keep me from being in New York.
Surprise, surprise, surprise. Something's going on with Kris. It's got to the point where I can't help but wonder, is Kris really this unlucky? Or is she just addicted to the attention? Either way, Kris seems absolutely unapologetic for her behaviour and insists it's Jeymi's own fault if she's hanging on to any anger about her, which is an insane stance to take after you got physical with someone. In fact, it feels borderline abusive, and it seems like someone else is seeing through her facade.
I do not like Kris. Not a fan. I think that she's full of baloney. She's like, oh, I'm sick. I'm my neck, my back, my everything. I'm like,
honestly, I couldn't have put it better myself, Gabe. Gabe's reaction to Kris is the most interesting because he also moved to Colombia to be with Isabel. So his take on how difficult that move is as an American is really valuable. Now, when the tell-all kicks off, Sean immediately brings up the fight we just saw.
Kris, you said you were done. Have you two talked since then?
No.
No.
Wow, okay.
Now, based on fan sightings, the tell-all was reportedly filmed in March of this year. But what's not clear is when the season wrapped up filming and just how long these two haven't spoken to each other. I'd be curious to know whether or not they've officially begun divorce proceedings. We know that Kris hates talking about money, so it's interesting that she pitches in during Debbie's segment when Debbie's talking about how much she spent on Osama.
I paid for groceries, for like day-to-day living expenses.
I know where she's coming from. You know, we have big hearts about helping other people.
The audacity from Kris is unbelievable, and in my eyes, it 100% shows that she sees Jeymi as a charity case, as someone she needed to help. But Jeymi's reaction says everything we need to know about what she thinks of the help Kris has given her. Some help, considering she's now in more debt than she was prior to their relationship, just because Kris decided to dip as soon as things got too much for her. Now, while we're going to have to wait till part 2 of the tell-all to really dive into Kris and Jeymi's segment, from the teaser that we're given, it looks like Kris has already moved on from her marriage.
Su exnovio me estaba enviando fotos de ella desnuda, teniendo sexo y demás. And I have the pictures.
So, as far as we can tell so far, Jeymi and Kris are definitely over, and Kris has rebounded with a male ex. That must feel like another gut punch to Jeymi. But the truth is, Jeymi should be celebrating the fact that she got out of this marriage as fast as she did. Keep in mind, if Kris is the kind of lady that's okay to shove her in front of a camera crew, then who knows what she'd be capable of behind closed doors.